Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that will be published for the rest of this year that are on my radar. So some of these books I'm definitely going to buy no matter what, that I'm really looking forward to them. Others I'm going to wait and see what the consensus is, see what everybody's thinking, because I'm not 100% sold, but I'm interested in them, so I want to see how it goes. So I have a good few books on this list and I'm just going to present them to you in order of publication date. So I haven't always been super excited about new releases in my reading journey, but within the last, I'd say, year and a half, I love getting excited about new releases. I think it's really fun to be excited about a new book with a lot of other readers, and the excitement that you have on the publishing date to go get the book. I just think that's really fun. So I'm going to keep my synopses pretty short because I do have a good few books on this list. I'm just going to give you enough information to whet your palate and make you a little bit excited about these books, and then you can go find some more information about them if you find yourself interested in them. I just want to acknowledge that yes, I am channeling our booktube queen, Noelle Gallagher. If you know, you know. I just had to acknowledge it. So the first release that I have on my list is for August 25th, which is just in a couple of days. And that's for the Penguin Seasonal Little Clothbound Classics. Now, as you can see, I collect the Penguin Clothbound Classics, the regular size, but Penguin is publishing these mini ones. Supposedly they're seasonal. I don't know if it's like the season in the short stories or the color of the cloth that they're using on the covers. I'm not sure, but either way, Coralie Bickford-Smith is a genius. I'm gonna buy these books. I think they're absolutely beautiful, and I mean, it's kind of obvious. I have to add them to my collection. The ones I'm particularly excited about are The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, Passing by Nella Larson, Lady Susan by Jane Austen, and Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Next is a book that's actually being released earlier in the US, so if you're in the US, you can get this book on August 23rd, but for us in Europe, we have to wait until September 1st, and that's Babel by R.F. Kuang. So R.F. Kuang is the author of the Poppy War trilogy, which never really interested me. That's not really something that I wanted to read, but I've heard excellent things about it, that the writing is really good. But the reason that I'm interested in Babel is because I'm getting the impression that this is going to be super dark academia, like it's set in Oxford, and it has to do with translation, which sign me up, that sounds incredible. So if you're really into dark academia like I am, I think Babel is going to be for us. And I don't need to talk this one up too much, I think, because this is all over the internet, so you probably already know the details of it, and you're probably already sold on it or not. Next, on September 6th, is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. So Maggie O'Farrell is the author of Hamnet, which is the historical fiction about Shakespeare, which was really successful. Everybody loved it. It's still on my TBR, but I'm really looking forward to reading it, but I've only heard excellent things about it. And I think I might actually be even more excited for The Marriage Portrait than Hamnet because this centers around the Medici family, which I'm obsessed with the Medicis. So I'm particularly interested in the Medici family because Catherine de' Medici was a queen of France at one point in history. And if you don't know, I live in France, so I'm really interested in French history. But this story centers around Lucrezia de' Medici. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Lucrezia is the grand niece of Catherine. So hopefully there's going to be some mention of Catherine in the story. I don't know. Even if there's not, I'm still really interested in this. I think it will be some really good historical fiction. Next, also on September 6th, is Off With Her Head by Eleanor Herman. So this one is a nonfiction and it explores misogyny against women who have power. And the subtitle is 3,000 Years of Demonizing Women in Power. So the blurb says that it explores women from Cleopatra to Kamala Harris. So I think really any woman who had power and got pushback from the patriarchy, I'm sure that that woman is going to be explored. Of course, for me, a lover of French history, the cover and the title is what sold me. I mean, Off With Her Head. There's a picture of Marie Antoinette on the way to get guillotined. I'm sold just on that, but I think it's going to be a really interesting nonfiction and I'm looking forward to it. Next, on September 13th, is a short story collection by Ling and it's called Bliss Montage. So Ling is the author of Severance, which I really want to get around to reading. I've heard really good things about it. It's a pandemic book, and this is a short story collection from this author. I'm not really a huge fan of short stories, but I'm still trying to find that short story collection that I'm going to love and really connect to, and maybe this could be it. So the blurb on this is that it's 8 short stories of people making their way through the madness and reality of our collective delusions. Sounds obscure enough to interest me. It says the themes are love and loneliness, connection and possession, friendship, motherhood. Okay, I think this is one of those ones that I'm going to wait and see what the feedback is, but it is on my radar. Next, on September 15th, is We Spread by Iain Reid. Now, if you've seen my most recent video where I talk about my favorite thrillers of all time, you'll see that I love Iain Reid's I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's one of my favorite books of all time, so I'm really excited for this next book from Iain Reid. So this book follows Penny, who is an older woman who's starting to struggle with old age. And from what I can gather from the blurb, I think that she's put into like a home for older people so that they can take care of her. But once she's put into this home, like she starts starts to lose her grip on reality and like strange things start happening. And if this is anything like I'm Thinking of Ending Things, it's gonna be phenomenal. Next on September 20th is Have I Told You This Already by Lauren Graham. So Lauren Graham, as I'm sure you know, was Lorelai Gilmore in Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls is like my favorite show of all time, so I'm gonna read this no matter what. Last year I read her other memoir, Talking as Fast as I Can, and that one talked a lot about Gilmore Girls, which was really interesting, but I don't have the impression that she's gonna talk about Gilmore Girls in this one. I think it's just essays about her life as an actress, but she's so funny. I'm sure this is gonna be a great collection of essays. And I'm probably gonna listen to it on audiobook because I'm sure that she's gonna read it. Next on September 20th is Uncultured by Daniella Young. So this is a memoir about Daniella, who grew up in the cult called the Children of God. So this book is being compared to Educated by Tara Westover, which I loved. Everybody loved that memoir. If you haven't read it yet, you need to read it. It's really, really good. So I'm getting the impression that this is in the same vein, that Daniella grows up in this cult and it's about her escaping and making a better life for herself. Then on September 22nd is a very special book being released, a very special edition, and that's the 30th anniversary edition of The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I'm definitely getting a copy of this because if you've watched my channel before, you know that I'm obsessed with The Secret History like everybody else in the world, but I'm for sure gonna get a copy of this special anniversary edition. However, if this is really what the cover is of the 30th anniversary edition, I'm gonna be upset because this is what the UK cover already looks like. Apparently just the spine is gonna be a different color on the 30th anniversary edition. I'm really upset about it. Like, they could have done something really cool with it. Like, the 25th anniversary edition looks so cool and I cannot get my hands on a copy of it for the life of me. But the 25th anniversary edition is beautiful. Like, why can't they do something like that again? Anyway, either way, I'm gonna get a copy of this. Next, also on September 22nd, is My Favorite Thing is Monsters Volume 2 by Emil Harris. So this is a graphic novel, and I've actually never read Volume 1 of this, but I saw it at the bookstore one time, and the art is beautiful. It's like ball pen art, and the book is huge. It's such a physically big book. Like, I want to read it simply because it's such a big graphic novel with such cool ball pen art, but I haven't gotten around to getting my copy of it yet. But knowing that a second volume is coming out soon, that's gonna push me to read that first volume sooner. So the first volume of My Favorite Thing is Monsters follows a 10-year-old girl named Karen, and it follows her trying to solve the murder of her upstairs neighbor, whose name was Anka, and she's a Holocaust survivor. But apparently she was murdered, and Karen's on a mission to figure out what happened to her. So next, moving on to October, on October 11th, we have the illustrated edition of The Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling, illustrated by Jim Kay, being released. So I've been collecting all of these illustrated editions. They're absolutely beautiful. Jim Kay's illustrations are absolutely stunning. So I've been having a lot of fun rereading these illustrated editions as they come out. So this Order of the Phoenix edition actually got delayed a lot because of the pandemic, but it's finally coming out and I'm really excited about it. I'll reread Order of the Phoenix when that comes out, and I'm looking forward to adding to my collection. Next, on October 11th is The Hollow Kind by Andy Davidson. I love this cover, this little bear like floating upside down. I don't know, it looks really cool. So anyway, this book follows a mother whose name is Nellie and her son Max, who are living in South Carolina, but then Nellie's father dies and she inherits his home in Georgia. So Nellie and Max pack up and they move to this new house of theirs, and everything seems perfect. Like, they're gonna start their life over now that they have this opportunity to have their own home. But things start to go south because creepy things start to happen. Like, they find scratchings on the walls, and the blurb says that Max sees what Nellie can't. So I don't know if that's paranormal. I don't know if he's just like understanding something that she doesn't understand, but it sounds really creepy and I'm here for it. And since it's coming out in October, it's gonna be the perfect Halloween read. So next, on October 18th is Self-Portrait with Nothing by Aimee Pokwatka. To be honest, the cover is what intrigued me. This cover is absolutely beautiful, so this would definitely be a cover buy. But this is a magical realism book that follows Pepper. She was abandoned as a baby and was adopted by two women, but when she's 15 years old, she figures out who her biological mother is, but she doesn't tell anybody. And as she starts to learn more about her mother, she finds out that her mother was an artist who did these really particular portraits of people. And this is where the magical realism comes in, because it was said that when her mother, the artist, did portraits of people, it summoned these people's doppelgangers from parallel universes. Now that sounds super sci-fi, and this cover is not giving me sci-fi, so I'm hoping that it's more in the magical realism and not like super sci-fi unbelievable. But I think it sounds interesting, and that cover is stunning, so I think I might pick this one up. Next, on October 18th is Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard by Tom Felton. So I'm sure you know Tom Felton was Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies, and this is a memoir about his time growing up working on the Harry Potter movies and becoming this mega celebrity at such a young age. If this is really what the cover looks like, I'm really disappointed. I feel like they could have done something better. Like, what is this font? And I feel like they could have done a better picture here. Maybe they'll publish other editions with different covers than this, but I'm not loving the cover. It's not selling me. But I am interested interested in reading this. I think it would be interesting to read about how he handled all this fame at such a young age. So I think that this one could be interesting. Next, on October 25th is Such a Pretty Girl by T. Greenwood. So this book follows our main character Ryan in 2 timelines. Ryan was a child actress in the 70s and her mom was actually trying to be an actress as well. But in today's timeline, we know that Ryan's not an actress anymore. And we follow her as she gets a text message in today's timeline from one of her friends saying that she saw in the news that this billionaire has a picture of Ryan as a preteen girl in his possession. Now this is really unsettling news to her because we find out from the blurb that this is a controversial photo and that this billionaire who has this picture in his possession have uncomfortable feelings towards children, shall we say. But what's weird is that on the back of this picture is her mother's handwriting dedicating this picture to this man. So Ryan is forced to figure out what the heck happened between her mom and this man and her childhood and her acting career, her mom's acting career, just trying to untangle this mess. I think that this sounds really heavy but really fascinating. Next we'll move on to November, and on November 1st we have An American in Provence by Aimee Beck. So Aimee Beck is this incredible photographer from New York. This book is like a coffee table book of her beautiful photography, but also like little anecdotes of living in the south of France and like recipes and just like tips and techniques for taking beautiful photos yourself. I just think that this is going to be a beautiful book and I just want to support Aimee Beck, and she makes such beautiful art. Next, also on November 1st is Strega by Johanne Lykke Holm. This is translated from the Swedish. So this follows 19-year-old Rafa, who gets a job at this beautiful hotel. I think I read that it's in the Swiss Alps, don't quote me on that, but it's some beautiful hotel. So Rafa shows up at the hotel ready for her new job, and there's 8 other young women who are there as well. So these 9 young women are trained to be the perfect hotel maids, and they're constantly being pushed by their boss to improve their skills. However, what's weird is that there's no hotel guests. You know, they're constantly working to improve their skills, but Rafa thinks it's weird. Why is no one showing up at the hotel? Like, why are we working to prepare the hotel so much when there's no one even here? So they feel like they have no purpose. Why are they working so hard? But then one day, all these people show up at the hotel for this huge, crazy party. So the blurb says that this is actually a commentary on how we raise young women and the expectations that we give them in life. So I think that this could be an interesting feminist story. So this already has a good few ratings on Goodreads because obviously it's already been published in the Swedish. I will say that the rating on Goodreads isn't great, but I'm hoping that the English translation gives this book a new life and that people really like it. But I'm gonna wait and see what the consensus is before I dive into this one, but I do think it sounds really interesting. Next on November 3rd are the second wave of little Clothbound classics, and these ones are for winter. The ones that I'm most excited for in this collection are The Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote and The Nutcracker by E.T.A. Hoffman. So The Nutcracker is being released in perfect timing to read for Christmas. Next on November 8th is another Clothbound classic, but this time it's the full-size one, and it's for The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This was actually already released in the US months ago, but for whatever reason we don't have it in Europe yet, so I'll be picking that up for my collection in November. Then on November 8th we have Now Is Not the Time to Panic by Kevin Wilson. This one follows 2 teenage boys who are kind of misfits, they don't fit in with anybody, and one day they make this sign and post it up around town. Now the blurb does not say what's on the sign, I think that's part of the mystery, like what the heck could be on this sign, but they go around town putting this sign on everything, and whatever is on this sign changes their lives forever. The blurb is kind of giving me the plot vibes, because the plot is about this book that has some crazy plot, but they don't tell you what the plot is. Like, this book is giving me that vibe. On Goodreads, this is classified as contemporary and coming of age. Now, we know we can't always trust what Goodreads classifies something as, but to me, the blurb sounds like a mystery now. So I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see what the consensus is on this before I pick this up, but it does sound pretty interesting. Next, on November 22nd is But, A Backstory by Heather Radke. I think that title is hilarious. A backstory. But anyway, this is a nonfiction of the history of beauty standards for butts. So obviously over history, what is considered beautiful for butts has changed a lot. And so this book examines like what in media and in our culture has made this beauty image change. Like in the blurb, it talks about how Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back affected the image of the butt, and the term buns of steel, what did that do to the body image? I just think that this sounds like a really interesting nonfiction book, and it'll be interesting to see how our culture and our media has affected these beauty standards over time. Next, we'll move on to December, and on December 6th, we have another nonfiction, which is Pests, How Humans Create Animal Villains by Bethany Brookshire. So this is another nonfiction, and as the title suggests, it studies why we deem certain animals disgusting and pests, and why we love other animals and we let them into our homes, and we protect certain animals, and why we've been taught to treat certain animals certain ways. I'm interested in reading this because at the beginning of this year, I went vegetarian, so I'm really interested in learning about how humans view different types of animals, and I think that this will be an interesting history of animals and how humans view them. So those are all the books that I'm excited about that are being released for the rest of 2022. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a like, I would really appreciate it. Hopefully you found something in this list that you're excited about that you'd like to pick up before the end of this year. If that's the case, let me know down in the comments below what you think you might pick up. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, I'd love to have you back, and I'll talk to you again next time. Bye!